It was never promised the life here on earth would be easy, but let's go on this journey together. You're listening to From Hurt to Hope. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. I am so excited that you're here. And I woke up this morning once again so excited about this interview. I cannot wait for you guys to hear from our guest today. So I'm not going to ramble on too long because our time is just very, very precious, very valuable. And Mark is just so full of wisdom that I want to be able to let him speak as long as he can. So Mark Geissbauer, thank you. Thank you for being a guest. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and who you are, where you're from?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I don't know about the wisdom part, but I'll let you be the judge of that. But I so appreciate the opportunity to be with you. So my name is Mark Geissbauer. I was born and raised in Germany, where I've spent a significant amount of my life. And then really starting to have the opportunity at the age of 14, because predominantly through soccer, to travel the world. And I've been to a ton of countries all around, ultimately ending in Sandusky, Ohio. And it's been a great journey. I'm married to Rachel, my beautiful wife, and we have two girls. Chloe, who's a senior in high school, and Gracie, who is just starting fourth grade. So feel very blessed and fortunate to be here.
Yes, absolutely. And I often wonder, like, how did you even end up in Sandusky? So you said you were born and raised in Germany, and you played soccer, right? Is that how you started out?
Yes.
Okay.
So when I was 14, I actually had the opportunity to go to Brazil, which is kind of the dream for every soccer player is to play in Brazil. And so I had the chance to move there and be playing in an academy to become a professional player. Spent 3 years there and just really formative years in my own life. And long story short, realized it was eventually more fun to stand on the sidelines with a coffee in my hand, telling the guys what to do instead of running myself. And so I ended up more in the managerial executive role, supporting some soccer teams, and ultimately was recruited to run the professional soccer team in Cleveland, which coincidentally, my wife, she was my wife then, but at the time we met because she was the massage therapist of that team. And she was from Sandusky, Ohio. And as our family grew, and, professional athletes don't have problems between 9 and 5. I wanted a more steady home presence for my girls and for my wife. And so long story short, we ended up moving to Sandusky, and and here we are.
That's right. That's right. So now, where did your first, encounter with Jesus come into your life? Were you raised in a family that went to church every Sunday, or was it somewhere along the lines, growing up that happened?
Yeah. So my parents, are both strong believers. My dad's been an elder at our church. I come from a Pentecostal background. Not crazy Pentecostal, but, just a great home church I had the privilege of growing up in. And faith has always been a big part of who I am, who I was. There were some years when I actually had the opportunity. I went to college in England, in London, England. And when I was there for 2 years, I really felt like this was my chance of trying to find what faith looked like, and actually moving away from faith and saying, well, let's see what the world has to offer. And those were not my proudest years. I admit it. I made a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of bad choices at the time. I'm grateful for my mom's prayers because they kept me alive many times, and ultimately realized that everything I tried, everything I did still left me empty ultimately. And, I remember being at big parties and having a great time and coming home afterwards and still having that kind of emptiness inside. And I've heard it being said before, that we all are born with a God-shaped hole inside. And I try to fill that with everything I could find. But until I realized, no, it was actually God who led me back to that point. That's when I really felt like, no, this is when my faith became really real. And so I'm sad that I had those unfortunate years, but I'm grateful for the experience too, because now I can sympathize with people that are going through a similar thing.
I think that is so common as like a young adult, just getting out of the home, especially if you were raised in a home with parents that believed and going to church and everything. I mean, you grow up hearing the Bible stories, but then when you get out on your own, it's like, okay, let me do this for myself. And unfortunately, sometimes they are the darkest seasons, but I am hopeful that most people who go through that, they have been able to come back full circle because something was still missing. So, yeah. And now I heard one time, I don't know if this is true, but have you been to every country?
Almost.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been to quite a few. I stopped counting after a while, but I don't think it's every country quite yet, but it's very close.
Oh, very close. And you have so much world experience though. You have seen all different types of cultures and all different types of beliefs around the world. And Christianity is where you've landed. Well, you started as a Christian,
Hmm.
but then also ultimately you have stayed a Christian, even
Hmm.
though you've
Yes.
seen all of this.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's been an interesting journey. And but to me, it comes back to I know that there is a God. I mean, I can argue all day long about well scientific reasons and all that, but I've seen it over and over, and I've seen miracles happen. I've seen just lives being changed for the good, and so that's never going to go away. So that's why it's so easy for me, and that's why I'm so passionate about sharing that hope with others because I know that they're probably looking at times, unfortunately, in the wrong places.
Yes, absolutely. I know. And the whole idea is I don't even know how I would have gotten through
Mhm.
2020 without my relationship with Christ. So like I often say that I don't know how somebody can go because that is the only thing that has gotten me through this year. I'm sure
Yes.
for you as well because you are leading a church and it has been a challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For us, even this has been probably the hardest year in leadership. So everything I've been through, I mean, I remember I will never forget this one week. We met as a senior leadership team on Monday, and we said, "Oh, well, there's this COVID rumor. It's probably nothing. Let's just not worry about it." Then we met on Tuesday morning. Well, this thing seems to be getting more serious, but we'll be fine. Later that afternoon, we're like, okay, and now we're changing how we do church forever, and going online from a 1 week to the next. And we recorded the next day. So it's definitely been a lot of pivoting. But looking back now, like there's so many lessons that we've learned through this process as well. And so as hard as it's been, I'm so grateful for the opportunity. Like I said, probably the most common thing that's happened so far is the Browns losing their first game. So, this year.
Oh gosh, if they won, it would have just been like, what is happening? Like this is not normal. Something is
That's right.
happening. Oh, well, speaking of challenges and everything, is there a particular moment in life or just something that you have went through or an experience you've had that has been more hurtful that you really had to hold on to your hope to get you through?
Yeah, I had a number of those. In general, I feel like I've been very fortunate, but there's been a number of things that have happened in my life that have really led me through some dark valleys. And as I think about this, one situation in particular comes to mind where, I've always been an all-in guy. So every job I had, every responsibility I had, I tell my wife it's an on and an off switch. It's not a dimmer, so when I was younger, I had a position and it was a great position. I loved what I was doing. I was very engaged and I threw everything in from my life into this job. And I was there staying up late. I had a couch in my office because I was frequently sleeping there just to get as much work in. This was before family, and it really became almost my identity, who I was and what I was doing. And long story short, as the organization progressed, I started to see some things that I'm like, ooh, I'm not sure I want to do that. And oh, I'm not sure that's the vision that we set out to do. And I'm not sure I want to follow that. And as time continues, there were some decisions made and some egos that came into the play and fame and fortune. And I was like, that's I don't want to get involved in this. This is not why I'm here. And so I voiced those opinions to the leadership at the time. And I said, hey, I really struggle. I love what I do. I love who you are. You're all my friends. And, I believe you have the best at heart, but there's just some things that I see that make it really difficult for me to be here. And the next, shortly after, I gave them some time to think about, and they said, nope, I think we're good. We want to keep doing what we want to do. So I said, okay, well, if that's the case, then I need to take a step back and I need to evaluate where my place is. And at that point in time, I was given a few hours to empty my office. I was threatened to leave the country because my visa was tied to the organization at the time. And my entire world turned upside down because I so strongly believed in what I was going to do. And honestly, because my identity was so closely related to this job that I didn't know who I was at that point in time. And it was a really difficult situation for me trying to figure out what is that place? What does God have for me? Did I do the right thing? Did I not? And so that was definitely a very difficult situation for me.
Oh my goodness. And what you said, I think that caught me off guard the most, or just shocked me the most, was you just had a few hours to
Mhm.
clean out your office and you didn't know what was next.
No, and some of those people were my closest friends, and I understand looking back now that they just thought they did what they thought was the right thing to do, but it definitely left a gaping hole for me, and I didn't know what to do with that, and so for me, I'll be very transparent. I started drinking right away, just simply because I didn't know how to handle it, and I wasn't mature in my faith. I wasn't ready to handle a situation like this, and it took me a while to really work through some of that and seeing the own darkness inside myself. And luckily, I started pulling close to some people that were my close friends that I could rely on, my family, my people that I really respected, and they helped me process some of that. They helped me say, hey, you know, just because it's easy to go and drunk, that's not the best way for you to handle this. And there is a better way, and God ultimately has a better purpose for you. And so that's what they helped me through that process, and really helped me see that was in God's plan, even if it wasn't in mine, and maybe my identity was too closely related to this job, and this was his way. And long story short, if they wouldn't have let me go the way they did, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be the person I am today. Now, I know that's easier said than done, and I wouldn't have been able to phrase it that way back then. And there were definitely some deep valleys to go through, but I knew that there was hope. And now looking back, it's easy to say, no, here's God's fingerprints left and right. And look, this is what he did. And this is the person that he brought into my life during that time. And so looking back again, I'm almost grateful for it. I don't want to go through it again, but I am grateful for the experience and the opportunity of growth that it provided for me.
And I think what you said, the word growth, that is so true. Thinking back about my darkest season that I went through last year and how much it was so uncomfortable. I never want to go through that again, but I was growing. On the other side of it, I am so much stronger than what I ever was before I entered that season. Yeah. So you were luckily, you were blessed to have family and friends that could root you back into that. So they more or less were pulling you to hold on to that hope found in Jesus and that promise that God had for you.
Correct. Yeah. They just came alongside me and said, hey, let's refocus you. Let's look at what God may be doing through this opportunity. And, and maybe there is something that he's trying to teach you through that. And them coming alongside me and having the opportunity for me to listen to them, that what pulled me back into the right path. And that's what helped me get through, and then ultimately gave me an opportunity to get an even better job than I had before.
Yeah.
That I loved and was even more passionate about than before. So but it took good people and good advice, and for me to even be open to listen in that moment to say, oh, well, maybe I am wrong, and maybe just because it's easy, that's not the best thing to do.
That's right. Oh, that's so true though, because so often we can't see that. God doesn't tell us exactly how things are going to end up. And it's so hard to just the word trust. And thankfully you did have that family that was able to walk
Yes.
with you through that. So when would you say that your relationship started growing the most? Was it when you were finally here in the United States? Was it, a decade ago? When was your relationship, I guess, really sparked and that fire really found?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think right after my time, so when I moved to England and went to college there, and I came back to Germany for another job. At the time, I still wanted to go my own way. And actually, this is how kind of Christ brought me back. But it's a really wild story. But I was at a Brazilian church in Germany. I was invited by a friend who was a professional athlete, a professional soccer player. And so I honestly just went because I liked him. We were friends, and so, I just wanted to hang out with him, and that's why I went. And it was a great church, very small, loving people. And they had a guest preacher that day. And so I remember sitting in the row, and he was going on about something, and I wasn't really paying attention, just a little bit out of, kindness. And he, in the middle of the message, stops, walks off the podium in the middle of the aisle, and stops and says, God just gave me something, and I just need to share it. And he starts laying out, and I kid you not, my life story, like things that nobody in that room knew. I've never known the guy. I don't know his name. He's never met me before. He didn't know I was there, but he starts laying out my life story and didn't say who it was. He just said, hey, this is what I feel like God's telling me. And at the end of the story, he says, and I just want you to know that whatever you've tried to fill your life with, God wants to be that. And you can try to fill it with everything you want, but unless you let him back into your life, nothing's going to change. And I am, I'm German. I'm not very emotional, but I started crying. I just couldn't hold it in. And then he walks back up on the stage and continues his message like nothing ever happened. And my life was forever changed in that moment. And that's also when I knew I wanted to be in ministry, because I remember waking up the next morning thinking, if that's what I've been missing all my life, I know all of my friends are doing the same thing. And that's why I need to tell them about Jesus. That's why I need to go around the world telling people about why he is alive and why he is the answer to their questions in a lot of ways. And and do that in a kind and loving way, not beating people with the Bible over their head, but just simply sharing what he has done in my life so they can find that hope, that peace, that comfort, that assurance that no matter what happens in this life, I know where I'm going to go one day. And so shortly after that, so I was 21 at the time. That's really where I felt like, no, I need to go. I need to make this, I need to reach more people. And so, yeah, I went from 0 to 10 in no time, wanting to share what God has just done in my life.
Oh, that story, that story, you had me like, I had goosebumps and everything. Cause I'm like, when you said he stepped down, I mean, it's like, oh, he's coming for me or something like, and you didn't know, it got your attention then, I'm sure, like this has been disrupted and it was a message that was made for you and just ultimately, just saved your life and really just started it all. So you said that you have this desire to share with the masses, with everybody in all different cultures. And that's true because you have been on a ton of mission trips and you've done a ton of mission work all around the world. So where are some of the places you've been and how have you been able to share the love of Jesus with people?
Yeah, no, I love going to other cultures. I love meeting new people and experiencing what they go through and then trying to come alongside them and helping them through. I don't know, I've been through a lot of countries. I spent a significant amount in Africa. So I have a foundation that I co-founded that uses sports and, community development to help people. So, we always talk about like two sides of the airplane. So whenever we go into our country, we want to help them to where they are. So a lot of times, we've built schools and drilled wells for communities. We've provided jobs. We have trained people to make their own income and be able to sustain that, and so we've done a lot of very creative things. We've done a lot of soccer training and using the gifts and talents that God has given us to help others. And so that's the one side of the airplane, but as an airplane, you have to have two wings. And so the other wing is always that there's always a faith component to what we do. So we try to help them and where they need is, but then we also trying to help them spiritually as well. And so I've been to Mozambique. I spent a significant amount of time. Right now, we're very heavily invested in Burundi, Africa. I've spent a lot of time in Kenya. I've spent a lot of time in pretty much all over Europe. I remember doing a soccer camp in Turkey with 50 kids and the translator didn't show up. And so I was there in the middle of nowhere, not speaking the language, and we had the day to fill. And so we just had a blast playing soccer together. A lot of very different places, different experiences, but it's been truly a blessing to know people. And I think that's what I loved about most of all the trips I've been on is the people that I've met on that journey and how they've impacted me. I would have never met or heard any of that. And and it's easy to talk about, forgiveness and forgiving others. But if you've met somebody who was beaten almost to death because of a civil war and then goes up and the next day and says, but God calls me still that I need to help others and forgive them. And, if you hear those stories, you just can't turn that off. And I love that's where I get to meet people where I can interact with them and hear and learn more about their stories.
Oh yes, you've probably seen so much and just heard so many stories that these people, it's like they are really holding on to something real. Because if this whole God thing is just a figment of our imagination, there's no way that these experiences people would have went through would have just completely broke them. And it might be even just more clarifying that yes, God is the one who has gotten you through all of this. And that's what to hold on to. Do you have a life verse that you turn to during hard times or something that you share with people when they're going through hard times?
Yeah, I have a number of them. Actually, they're all around my office. But probably my favorite verse, especially when it comes to hard times, is Joshua 1 verse 9. And it's actually right here above. It's like, be strong and courageous, you know, and I repeat again, be strong and courageous, because it's easy to give up. It's easy to give in. It's easy to start dwindling down, but we have the promise from God that he says, no, I'm with you in this journey. I will not leave you. I will not forsake you. I'm going to carry you through. And so, you know, no matter what I'm going to endure in life, I know I have that promise. I have that that foundation. And to me, I always remember it. I can fall as deep as I have to, but I will never fall past God's loving arms to catch me. And I'll be honest, there's no other place I'd be than within him in his arms. So, you know, so I know I have that encouragement. Now, that doesn't make, you know, some of the experiences easier. I understand that too. But I know that no matter what happens, I can always come back to that to say, no, I need to be strong and courageous, and he's going to be there wherever I go.
Oh, that's so true. And I think one thing, something that some people might think is that once you become a Christian, once you're saved, that you get this bulletproof vest and life doesn't hurt you anymore, that you just don't experience hardship. But for me, it wasn't until after a few years after being saved that I hit my deepest, darkest moment in my life. And I think that kind of just trips people up, but it's not like this ultimate, like life isn't going to, you know, still be hard for you, but having a verse like that to hold on to.
Yeah, if you want an easy life, don't become a Christian. You know, I mean, it's just ultimately, and Jesus promised it to us. Hey, you're gonna go through hard times. You're gonna have difficulties, but take heart. I am with you in this. You know,
Absolutely.
and so that's what we can rely on.
Yes. And the whole point that he has overcome the world, like that is what has really been like the anchor. That is like my life verse right now, is that it's going to be messy. It's going to be hard. There's going to be trials, you know, you're going to be put in some really tough, difficult situations, but, you know, take heart, because you just hold on to that hope, and in the end, Jesus wins. So being in professional sports and everything like that, you've seen a lot of highs and lows, not only in your personal life, but also in your professional life. So can you tell us about the time that your team like won really big?
Yes. Yeah, it was actually in Cleveland, and it was my second year here at the team. And all year long, we had prepared hard for the championship, and we had a great season. We had a great group of guys, and we really worked hard to get there. And so ultimately, one of the days, we got to host the championship. And it wasn't just any championship, it was the national championship. It was broadcasted on national television, on Fox Sports at the time. We got to host it in our home field because our organization was so strong that they felt like, no, we want you to be hosting it. It was a sold out crowd, and we got to play against our main rivals from Charlotte, which all season long we had kind of been going back and forth and back and forth. And so, yeah, very quickly into the game, you know, we scored the first goal. We scored a second goal shortly after, and we're cruising pretty much throughout the game until 5 minutes before the end. And the team from Charlotte scored again, so it was 2-1, and our guys held on for dear life. Finally managed to make it to the final whistle, and we won the national championship. Moment I will never forget in my life. Everybody was hugging and cheering, and you know, it was just one of those moments where you live for as an athlete. I mean, we put our sweat and heart into this championship, and you know, and then to win it in front of a home crowd was just a special moment. But that was not the only thing I remember of that night. Actually, what I remember more about it was a couple of hours later, after everybody left, the players went out to celebrate, and the fans were left the stadium at the time. It was just me and a couple of kind of operations cleanup crews left. And I remember sitting on top of the stairs, overseeing the beautiful Cleveland skyline. And I just wanted to take in that moment. You know, it was like after everybody was gone, I just was able to be by myself. And I just felt like, okay, let's just enjoy this. But then a question hit me that I didn't honestly expect at that time, because I thought that's all I wanted to be all year long. I mean, for my life, that's what I've been working towards. And it was the question, but the question that hit me in that moment was, well, is that it? Because I felt like, and I always knew that, you know, yeah, my identity isn't tied to who I am and my championship and my awards and the recognition I've received over the years. But subconsciously, I thought, man, if we just win that championship, I'm going to be fulfilled. My life is going to have purpose, and I'm going to be great. And so I thought, man, as long as I make it there, that's what it's going to be at the end. And I came to the end of that ladder. I achieved it all. I won it all, but I still felt like there was more. I still felt like, no, if this is it, that cannot be the end. actually, when I talk to people all the time, being it businessmen, being it stay-home moms, being it people in the community, like I see it over and over. There are people like, man, if I just get a little bit more money in my bank account, if I just get that next promotion, or if I just get to this next level, or if I finally get my kids to behave the way I want them to, then I'm going to be happy. And to me, because I've experienced it, I've came to the end of that ladder and I realized there's nothing there. And so for me, it was a real gut check to say, well, what do I need my life to be founded in? What do I need? Where do I find my identity? What do I find who I am, and where does my strength come from and my purpose? And it's not in my job. It's not in my relationship. It's not in the people or my bank account or any security I could ever have. It only comes from my relationship with Jesus. And I actually do better if I put that first, because then everything else out of that, I can, I can have a bad day. I could lose a game the next season. And I didn't feel like, oh, that's the end of the world, because I knew I had that foundation. But at the same time, I still wanted to strive to be as good as I possibly could.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I, for one, I've had that season where I thought like, okay, if I make this type of money, or if we achieve this goal, or if I buy this new item,
Yep.
then I'll be happy, that I will be that's it. But it's almost like the bully with the line in the sand. It's going to move a little bit further and a little bit
Yep.
further and a little bit further. And it's this, like, I think it's just this distraction that so many of us in the world, we think is true. But I know now that if I get up in the morning and I tune into what God's purpose is for me, that I just live my day a little bit fuller. I am not so focused on worldly thoughts and worldly situations, that I can step out and just go a little bit further, being anchored in that every day. So you knew that day that you wanted to obviously share this word with everybody because of how much you just felt that love and how much it's impacted your life. So what was the road that led you into ministry, and how did you become a pastor?
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. I never seeked out to be a pastor, honestly. I always wanted to use soccer as my tool, because that was the one thing I knew. I played it all my life growing up. I remember, I was reading in school and I was reading books, and I was reading while kicking a soccer ball, walking around. My mom will tell you she used to have this beautiful doll collection of porcelain dolls. Well, after I went through high school, she didn't anymore. So, but I knew that was what I could do and what I was good at. And so I wanted to use that as my tool. And for most of my life, that's what I've done, is using the sport of soccer and the platform that it gives me to share with other people. And ultimately that led us very shortly after my conversion and how Jesus got hold of my heart again to start our ministry. We call it Kicked Off to Hope. And, and we use that all over the world to then share the gospel. And then I realized, man, but God has probably more for me. And, I've had some jobs where I felt a lot of purpose. But most recently I was in a role where, my job was to make other people money. And that's not a bad thing. That's not wrong, but I felt like God was leading me to more. And when then the opportunity arose here at the church to say, hey, maybe there is an opportunity here to use my gifts, the experiences that God has given me in business, in how to manage and how to look at finances and be a good steward of resources, and to use that here at the church, and being able to do that in ministering to people, ministering to our staff, helping people in the time of need. And I get to do that full time, and I get to do a salary. That was a home run for me. And I love what I do here. I love the people I work with. I love the community that we get to serve. And so that's what I love doing. And I'm grateful that God has me in this position. And again, all the things that happened to me in my background, kind of now looking back, helps me see that He has shaped me to be who I am today. And because of all the experiences I went through and all the different things I've seen, the good and the bad, I can be much more effective now helping others.
Absolutely. And it's just one of those things, like God, like, has this, like you keep saying, it's been a crazy ride, or it's been just unpredictable, and it's been all over the place. Like that's the beauty in it, is because the line is never just straight across, like from start to finish. It usually is twists and turns and sharp turns and almost backtracking sometimes in order to get where God wants you to be. But I'm really thankful that you've ended up in our area, because you mean so much to Brad and I both, and you're such an encouraging person to have around. And I think that we need more people just like you for that. If you could give advice to a younger version of yourself, what would you tell younger Mark?
That's a great question. I think for me, it goes back to just my experience in England and trying to find things. And I think I would tell myself, stop believing the lies that the world tells you. It's easy to look at the world around us, and especially with social media and things, it's all there at our fingertips, and we watch the news and the media and the TVs and the commercials, and we see these great pictures all over the place. Um, and it's easy to be tricked into thinking, well, if I just have this, if I just get there, if I just become this or have this, or and I think that's probably something I've learned throughout the years, is that I need to stop believing these lies and start listening to what the Bible says about how He's guiding me, where I need to find my self-worth, where my strength is coming from. It's not the next thing that I have, or the great pictures or the likes on Facebook that I can get. It's all based and founded in Him. And I know over my years I've fallen into that trap many, many times, and believe me, I still fall into it all the time. So even by you asking that question, I think it's just always a good gut check of saying, well, where do I put my trust? Where do I put my value in? And is it things of the world, or is it not? Yeah, looking back, I think I could have probably avoided a lot of heartache, a lot of issues, a lot of problems in my life if I would have focused on God and not what the world tells me was true.
Oh my gosh, you're speaking right to me though, because I can still fall into that trap to this
Hmm.
very day. Like if I put a
Yep.
post out there and it doesn't get enough likes in the first few minutes, I'm like, oh, okay, then never mind. That wasn't good enough. Like I shouldn't have said that. Even if it was something I thought about all day and felt called to do, I will still
Hmm.
wait for the worldly approval on it. Or I remember so many times that, I mean, Brad and I, we dug ourselves into a big hole of debt because we thought that all of these earthly possessions were going to make us happy. And because society was telling us, you need to be homeowners, you need to drive brand new cars, so on and so forth, it messed it up. And I just feel like that is one of those schemes that the enemy has, that where he's out there just trying to make us think that we're going to be happy any other way. But when you're truly going to be happy, it's going to be because you know what God has called you to do and just making a difference the way He has created you to make the difference. So for myself, it's this ministry here, helping people
Hmm.
who've went through something that was hard, a really tough season, but how they can find hope and how they can keep going forward. And for yourself, you've mentioned before, you have your ministry Kickoff to Hope. So do you, like, what kind of different events and things like that do you guys have planned? I know COVID has probably changed that. You have brought a lot of soccer camps to both the United States and also have had those in other countries. But
Hmm.
what upcoming fun things do you have, or how could people get involved with Kickoff to Hope?
Yeah, actually, it brings me back to something we talked about earlier. I want to encourage everybody, if you've not been on a mission experience, and you don't need to go right to Africa into the deepest, darkest, like start small, that's okay.
Yeah.
But just do something and take that step. And I know when I had that chance, my first trip I went to when I was 14,
Yeah.
and I had never been on an experience like this, and the friend I made at that point in time was a guy that was living in an orphanage. He was my age. We played soccer together, so that's how we bonded. And his mom put him in the trash when he was 2 days old and left him there. And luckily, somebody found him from the orphanage. And I came from a protected home. I never went starving. I didn't, I knew what orphans were, but I didn't never experience anything like it. And just rubbing shoulders with those with people like that and learning their stories and spending time with them, it truly changed my life in a significant way. So we always try to help people get those opportunities. And so, yeah, with COVID, we had a trip planned to Kenya this year. Unfortunately, that fell through. We are now in the plans of talking maybe going back to Germany next year, or maybe going back to Africa, or having people come here to the States. So we're working on those plans right now, but just have a chance of getting involved. The other part too is just pray. In our countries and the ones that we're at, specifically right now, we're doing Burundi and Kenya is our main focus. They're going through a difficult time, and where we probably had some margins to ride out some of the COVID issues, the people that I've talked to, they started off with living, not in the morning, not knowing where their meal came from in the afternoon. And so just think about, pray for those people, let them know that they're cared for. And anybody wants to connect with me, I'm happy to do that as well. And get you connected, get you plugged in, give you more information, more specific details. But yeah, we're planning already, different trips right now. We're looking at how do we help people in need through COVID. in the medical community in Burundi specifically. We're working on a project where we want to help people to get medical supplies and get access to things that they wouldn't have otherwise because their life and death depends on it. We're working right now on a women's project where we want to empower women to create jobs. And so we're teaching them how to sew and knit little items that they can sell so they can provide for their family so they don't have to go back into prostitution, which that was the only way they could generate income beforehand. We're working with kids and youth in a school, in an elementary school in Kenya right now, where we're trying to help them find ways to engage and to learn and to have a positive role model, because we know a lot of times those kids grow up, especially the young boys, that they don't have a father at home. They're either absent or they've never met them or they died. And so we're trying to provide positive role models to young guys because that's what they need. So they need somebody that can lead them through and follow them. So those are the kind of things we love to get involved. We love to do. We love to bring back another soccer camp to Ohio as well. But again, because of COVID, everything is kind of up in limbo right now. But if they want to connect with us, there's a Facebook page that we happily share. And like I said, if somebody wants to reach out to me directly, I'd love to hear from people. I'd love to connect them to a path where God can use them in the most best way.
Yes. And so what is the best way for people to connect with you? Is it email? Is it social media? Is it the Facebook page?
Yeah. So the easiest way probably is email. Just email me at mark@thechapel.family. That's my personal email. Love to connect, love to hear from your audience as well and how we can come alongside them. And then, there's a Facebook page as well. If you're just going to type in like Kickoff to Hope, it probably pops up for you. So there's different ways that people can find out more and get connected and see what we're doing and keeping it up to date.
Absolutely. And I often say to my husband, I'm like, Brad, I want to do a mission trip. I want to do this one day. But one thing I'm for sure is that you would have to go with me on this mission trip. You or Pastor Jay, because I'm like, you guys have seen the world. You've been around the world. Like, I'm a newbie and I get a little nervous, but you guys have so much experience that I would feel better having people I know. But just to think that you did your first mission trip at 14 years old, that just blows my mind. Like, I need to just get out there and go. So.
Well, now being a dad, I was like, what were my parents thinking? Letting me go to a foreign country I didn't speak the language of on 14, like no support, not knowing anybody. Like, I don't know, but I'm grateful for the experience. But I think the easiest thing is just start somewhere. And obviously we'd love to have you and Brad as well. But just go somewhere. And again, it doesn't have to be the biggest thing. There's plenty of opportunities just in our neighborhood, in our communities, to serve people, to help, just to do something. And, we're just talking today, like, just because you can't do everything doesn't mean you can't do something. And everything you do is going to mean something to somebody. And, so just do what God calls you to do. I know different people are in different life stages. But I can tell you, I've been on a ton of mission trips and I've never come back the same. There's always something that God taught me. Sometimes I feel like I'd go on them more for my own faith journey than for the people we get to help and come alongside with. But we always try to do both. But it's amazing how God can speak through those special times if we let him.
Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely. And your heart has just shined through. I mean, if people can't hear where your heart comes from, being able to do all of this and have been everywhere, and where you are now, you're out there ministering to people every single day. I hope that people will take the opportunity to connect with you and then also learn more about the Kickoff to Hope ministry. And then maybe if they're local, come and check out the chapel where they can hear messages just like the one you shared about how to find hope and how to hold on to that. So.
Yeah, we'd love for people to come out and explore and check us out. We love the opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm sure we'll be talking again soon.
Great. Thanks, Nicole.
Yep. Well, there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the From Hurt to Hope podcast. I am so excited to keep bringing you guys more and more guests. I have been working really hard on recording as many interviews as I possibly can. And the reason why I think I'm so excited is because each of these guests are either people who've been in my life for a little while, or they're people brand new to my life where I'm just learning of their story. But I get so excited because I love the idea of really going on this journey in life together and walking this, and maybe you can find somebody that you can relate to. So as each of these guests leave their contact information, whether it be how you can find them on social media or their email, if you connect with them, let them know, plug into their lives and, share a little bit about who you are and your story. Like I said, I am just so excited about some of the upcoming episodes that we have here on the show. I hope every time that you are finished with an episode, you are left feeling encouraged and inspired and can think to yourself, wow, if that person can get up and keep going after what they've recently went through, then so can I. So I hope that you guys all have a really great day, and we will talk again soon.